This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon and welcome to And Beyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. As you can see, we've got some lions resting wonderfully up on the top of the hill here. My name is Kim, and behind the camera we have Craig, and we would like to welcome you aboard to your very own digital safari, live from the African wild. You can see these lions have actually picked their heads up and are starting to give us a little bit of a show. It's lovely to see all their little faces. You can see the two on the right, quite smaller than the rest of them. And we'd just like to welcome you back. And again, my name is Kim, and behind the camera we have Craig, and we are coming to you live from And Beyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. We were very lucky. We were just heading into one section of the reserve and we came across this beautiful sighting of these lions right on the top of this quarried area. You can see that they are incredibly relaxed. They don't seem to have a care in the world at the moment. They found a really nice, comfortable spot. And in fact, it must be quite nice and cool up there. You know, we've got a bit of wind blowing at the moment. And I think they've chosen their spot really carefully. Don't imagine that there's a huge amount of wind that's affecting them. A little bit's been blocked out by being in this quarried area. We've got probably just a nice breeze blowing over them, keeping them nice and cool. Lovely that they're giving us a bit of attention. You see the one that's picked up their head now, the second or third one from the right? That is one of the older lionesses, and the other lioness is just rolled over on the far left. Oh, the two on the right are two of the young cubs. And then in the middle there's the other two cubs. And it's quite an interesting story that's happened with this pride. Is we actually have 5 cubs that belong to these 2 mothers. And we recently had 2 male lion from the north of our reserve expand, would look to be like an expansion of their territory, where they came all the way down to the south of the reserve and actually came across this pride. Now, they are not the fathers of these cubs, and we assume there was sort of an interaction between them because they were found not far from the pride. And on that day, we just found 2 lionesses and 2 cubs, so we did fear the worst that maybe they'd caught some. But it seems that the lionesses did a really good job and managed to get the cubs safely away. Most likely what they would have done is just sort of split off, run as fast as they could, and try and get away as quickly as they can. And they've managed to find 2 more of their cubs since then. Possibly they might still find the 5th one somewhere, might have just wandered off a bit further. We're going to sit around and see what these lions get up to today, and see if maybe they get a bit more active as it cools down.
Jumbo Jumbo, and a very lovely, beautiful, sunny afternoon here in the Masai Mara. I have a beautiful herd of buffalo. amounting to around maybe 600 scattered in front of me, together with that beautiful landscape of the Masai Mara, accompanied above by nimbus clouds or cumulonimbus, towering cumulus. Mixed all of them means that we might get some rain. Jumbo everyone, my name is Isaac and on camera I have Bungay. This afternoon our mission is to try and find some cuts, but everything in our way is very, very welcome. And as you can see, we have a beautiful big herd of buffaloes and some very big old dagger boys or bulls that have been wallowing in mud. Some of them are so wet, I hope we'll get to pick up one. I saw one earlier that was very wet, and the mud is very useful. Look at that guy. Looks like he just came out of a spa, a mud wallow. This is very important for these buffaloes because it protects the skin, also makes it healthy, protects it against direct sunlight, and also biting insects. Of course, after a few days, it will dry and fall off the mud, and so he needs to find another wallow to do the same thing. These are males, as you can see. They're already trying to leave the main herd. It's typical for big bulls to do this when they reach maturity at the age of around 6, 7. At that age, they're very intimidating and not afraid of anything. In the Mara today, we're expecting some rain, 28% chance, and the weather is quite lovely. It's around, I think, 27 degrees Celsius, and it's just perfect to be out here enjoying the African wilderness. Remember, this is life. It's coming from the Masai Mara, and apart from the buffalo, I have the cattle egrets accompanying the buffalo. It is normal, and they go together mostly in the long grass like this. Much easier to find food for these birds. They have learned this over the years that, they've been together. They're always together. Of course, in the evening, they will leave for the safety of the trees, close to the big trees, and then in the morning they will find the buffalo once again. Of course, I'm not the only one. We have other guides somewhere, so let's take you to another live location.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the sun. It feels like we are on the sun. We are moving from patch of shade to patch of shade to patch of shade. Anyway, my name is Lauren and I do have Carrot on camera. Yes, that's my little nickname for him. And here's a little bit of shade. Let's enjoy it. And we'll keep moving. But in all seriousness, it is very hot and I am going to do a water hole search. I think it's really, really the right thing to do. All animals are going to need water today, the liquid of life, from your antelopes to your predators to elephants, even insects. Insects do actually drink, and I'm hoping that we can maybe catch a dragonfly doing it at the little pan here. So we're going to be on the lookout for dragonflies and butterflies and anything else that we can see, including this little patch of shade. And onwards we go.
Sure what this elephant is investigating with his trunk. He should be scooping it full of mud, as I think he's about to do, and then going to hopefully toss it over his body. But as I'm sure you've guessed, we're sitting here at Ndlovu Dam, part of Pridelands. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and on camera with me today, as usual, is BK. And we're sitting here, part of the Bululi Game Reserve, observing these grey giants in their natural habitat. Again, envious and kind of wishing that I was them. And do you know what? I must share with you a thought. I keep telling you how I would never ever completely cover myself with this mud because it's gross and revolting. To me it is. Because I know how many different animal species defecate and urinate in there, and I do not want to touch it. But I think today is the day that I'll just do something drastic, because I think this heat has driven me insane. So once the elephants leave, I'll be going over to get a cup from the kitchen, because we're right outside the eco training camp, and I'm going to go and get a scoopful from exactly where that elephant's foot is, that front foot that's in that nice slushy mud there. Yeah, that stuff. Yes, boy, stir it up for me, because I'm going to come in just now when you're done. And I'm going to smear it on my arms. I won't be putting it on my face. At least if I put it on my arms, I can wash it off. And I want to see what it feels like when it dries in the sun. So, yeah, that's what I'm going to do, I think. Because, I mean, it kind of looks like fun. I don't think it would be very much fun with clothes on, though. I think that would be quite very dirty and they'd stick to you. That wouldn't be very pleasant. Elephant, you're lucky you don't have to wear clothes. That you can just be out in there in your natural skin. But I think we're going to just stay here for the entire day and watch all the elephants as they come on by.
Good idea to sit by a waterhole all day on a day like today. Good afternoon and welcome to this end of the Sunset Safari. We have a herd of elephants here, the northeastern corner of Djuma, which is on the western fringes of the Great Kruger National Park. My name is James Hendry. That is my winning smile, I hope. And on camera today we have got Niels, the Hood, from the ganglands of Pretoria. And there are our elephants. They were having a lovely swim in front of us and a bit of a drink. And I'm not sure if the swim is going to continue. If I was an elephant, there's no ways that I'd be doing anything other than swimming right now. I wouldn't say it's quite as deathly hot as it was yesterday, but it is still profoundly warm. Let's see if the matriarch just leads them straight out, or if they have a proper swim in the end there. Looks like a lot of the little ones would like to hang around and have a proper swim. You can see some of them have. It's just wonderful. And for those of you who are vaguely interested in the meteorology of this area, the wind changed at about 12 o'clock this afternoon from a northwester to a southeaster, and that means that the cooler weather is on its way and apparently will be with us sometime this evening, which will be something of a relief to both human and elephant and no doubt just about every other creature and plant out here. I wonder if they won't spend a bit of time around the waterhole for the afternoon, actually, eating and then coming back, maybe. Yes, Lincoln, this is the exact, or the most perfect example of an animal pool party. Elephants love to have pool parties, especially on days like today. Quite often they leave it till a bit later, but sometimes we'll be lucky and they'll go in around this time of the day. I'm sure that must be very nice having the cooling breeze on the wet skin that the elephants have. Remember, elephant's skin is like sponge, which means it absorbs a lot of water. It's not actually waterproof. It absorbs water, and that water will, well, I suppose, allow heat to radiate out of the skin, so they don't sweat. Well, they can apparently sweat a little bit, but that sweat is the always only in the sweat glands are in the toenails, and so they've got this very wrinkly, cracked skin, so that it can absorb water and help them stay cool. Here we go. Now our young bull's going in. It's normally the young bulls. Hello, Captain Alahut. No, this waterhole is not natural. Well, I mean, the water's natural. It's not pumped, but it's dammed. So we're parked on a dam wall. And so a dry riverbed, or dryish riverbed, two dryish riverbeds actually. This is the confluence of two dry riverbeds. And their outlet has been dammed. And that's why there's water here. It's a very interesting question and discussion point, because there's often a lot of discussion around water in this area and why it is that we, or if we should or shouldn't pump water, and if we should or shouldn't have dams like this. Because what used to happen is animals would just migrate out of an area when there wasn't water and then come back when there was water. But the rivers used to flow much more frequently than they do now, because there wasn't any agriculture or humanity living outside the borders of this particular area. And now that isn't the case, and so the naturally occurring water is not quite as, there's just not quite as much of it. And then the other thing to note is that, while it might be more ecologically feasible, what shall we say, ecologically sustainable to just try and recreate naturally occurring water, because of the property sizes of reserves in most areas, it would mean that if you were lucky enough to have water on your property, you'd have all the animals, while those people who didn't have water on theirs would have nothing, but at very odd times of the year. With the result that everybody puts water on their reserves, and I think that that's probably profoundly changed, not necessarily for the worse or for the better, the layout and movements of animals. Oh, another elephant has come from behind us and got into the water. You see there, Niels? He's gone right under. You can just see his backside sticking up. I don't know where he snuck in from. It's quite fun. I didn't even see him coming or hear him. I just suddenly saw this periscope trunk sticking out of the water, and there he was. Now you can be very sure that any hippo in the vicinity is now skedaddling away. I don't want to be too close to this fellow, because he's just much bigger and more, I don't know, prepared to take them on, I guess. And the others still coming around the side of the waterhole, some of them drinking. I'm sure the youngsters saying, "Please, can we swim? Please, can we swim?" And I think we'll sit here a little bit longer before we head off. We'll see what these elephants do.
Welcome to Tswalo Kalahari. Something we don't get to see very often here. The clouds are building up slowly. My name is Obakeng, and I have a very good afternoon here at Tswalo with Dave behind the camera there doing a very good job. If you look in the distance there seemed to be a Hartmann zebra that was taken down last night. There are a few vultures flying around using the thermals. It might still be cloudy, but definitely the heat is
on, and these vultures would be soaring around and using the heat or the thermals to soar around. So we're hoping that they might start coming down and maybe foraging on this carcass right there. But obviously you can see that it's not your ordinary zebra. Look at those stripes not hugging the belly and just coming just onto the sides. And what's been just devoured there, it looks like the intestines and just the hindquarters. So there's still a lot of meat to be consumed there. That's why we're hoping that these vultures would come down, and maybe later the hyenas and so on might start coming by, and we'll see what comes to feed on this carcass. It's going to be an interesting story to see how it unfolds. Just scanning around there, trying to see what else could be in the vicinity. Yeah, I think we're going to keep moving. We'll come back later, as I said, to see if anything does come to feed on this carcass. And for the time being, while we search for other things, we're going to be sending you to another property in Africa.
We've just been watching these little warthogs have a spa day. We've positioned ourselves in the shade, which is just delightful. So I think they've forgotten that we're here, because warthogs can be incredibly skittish. I think they're going to pop back out again. Or at least I hope they are. It's very rare here that you get relaxed warthogs. And that's because, of course, everything eats them. Let's see if we can go forward a little bit. We're going to have to leave our little shady spots, I'm afraid. Let's see if we can get another view of them. Yeah, they're still there. I tried to do that as elegantly as I can, but I'm not entirely sure it worked. There you go. Once one runs, they're all going to run. They're around a water body as well. We're at Twin Dams. They can get very, very nervous around water bodies, as most animals do. Okay, let me try and go forward again. Okay, we're going to get a lovely view of them soon. Are they going to stay? Are they not? I do not know. I'm going to turn my engine off now. We just want to say good afternoon. It's actually the youngsters that are skittish. I think it's the mom there. She's absolutely fine. Now, usually in mammal tusks, it's the enlarged canines. But in elephants, it's the incisors. But normally, it's the canines. And within warthogs, it's exactly that. So these sort of tusks that you can see, tusks is definitely the correct word. Tusks is generally a term that we use for elongated, continuously growing teeth in general. So it can be incisors, it can be canines, depending on the species. And of course, they're normally in pairs, but not always. And they're said to protrude well beyond the mouth in certain species, as we can see, and that's how we can see them. So in warthogs, it's the canine teeth here that have sort of modified. We're being told to go away. Go on! So yes, they've modified, elongated, and developed into tusks. And of course, it's a great form of defense for organisms like warthogs. They are an ideal prey species. So having tusks, although these ones are really young, they've got their little fake tusks. We know they're fake. Yes. See the tufts of hair? It's to give the impression that they've got tusks, but they're actually too young. These are the little piglets that are always at Twin Dams that we've watched grow up along the way. Now, in most tusk species, normally the male and female both have them. And generally speaking, and again, it's a massive generalization, the males tend to be larger. And of course, they're curved. Makes it a lot easier to position on the jaws and the mouth if they're curved. But then again, the narwhal, that's a straight tusk. It's a helical structure, really. So I guess there's an exception, but generally they're curved. And most can continue to grow. They will just continue to grow throughout the animal's lifetime. And this is actually enabled by special tissue at the apical opening of the roots. Just like we have roots. I'm sure some of us have had that awful dental treatment, root canal. Ugh. Animals do too. Mammal species do too. And there's a special sort of tissue there that allows the continual growth of the tusks. The young ones are still unsure. But we're getting there, we got them. I imagine they'll keep jumping in and out of twin dams as much as they can. Our tusks can be used for many functions in the animal kingdom, if you think about it. Social displays, self-defense, digging. Warthogs use theirs to dig boreholes into the ground. And in organisms like elephants, it actually helps protect the trunk, which is of mass importance. Okay, we're going to leave our shiny little piggies be and go seek some more shade.
We are having a wonderful time here. Not as wonderful as the elephants are having, but we're still enjoying ourselves thoroughly. Slowly, the youngsters came down towards where the sort of big bull who's in the middle was swimming, and they all came in, and then a whole lot of other bigger ones joined them, and slowly the entire dam is filling up with swimming elephants. It's just great. I don't know why it's so entertaining to watch elephants swim, but it is. Probably because they don't sort of lie still, you know, they're always having, it looks the most joyful experience. No, I don't think so, Amanda. I think that if the trunk became clogged at all, they would just blast it out. I think the elephant would have to sort of become unconscious while particularly dense clay solidified in its nose for it to become clogged up properly. So no, I would say not. It was the most exuberant swimming experience. No, Nim, they don't love the heat. They love to, like most mammals, have a kind of ideal temperature, and because of this, it's so hot now, they're swimming, and that's to reduce the temperature. I think there's also a certain amount of joy involved, but no, they don't love enormous heat. It so often happens they get out and then they come back in again for around 3 or 4. So Nim, you'll find that very few animals really love the heat because heat is dangerous for animals. Many animals can cope with almost, absolutely extreme heat, but very few love it. They must work to get rid of it when it's really hot. And the bigger you are, the more difficult it is for you to lose heat, and that's why these animals don't have any hair. I mean, they've got a little bit, but they don't have fur to speak of. Now there's another herd approaching. We'll see if they come for a swim as well, or if it's just going to be a brief drink. It's a much smaller herd. Rosalind, there's no fixed number of times a year or day or month that elephants swim. They just swim when it's hot, although I've seen the young bulls swimming when it's quite cool. I think the young bulls do a lot more swimming than any other kind of elephant. But there's no kind of fixed frequency, I guess, to their swimming. They're bypassing this area entirely. There's a tiny little one there. Let's see if it wants to have a drink, or maybe a little swim. I often wonder when a small herd like this comes up and sees a much bigger herd, whether they feel intimidated or whether they feel excited or envious. Maybe they feel lucky that they're not in such a big crowd. Yeah, Debbie, I agree with you. Elephants do look very happy when they swim. It's a real feature of their swimming, is that they look like they're having such joyful fun. And again, I think all the ethologists who said that, you can't ascribe human emotions to animals, I think watching an elephant swim is a good way of showing how amazingly joyful an animal can seem, and probably is. These guys are not going to have a swim just yet. Little one had to do some serious wading there. The others are still swimming, by the way, as we look at these chaps come around. They might actually meet up with the other herd. So you want me to move back, Niels? Shall I? Oh, there's another one coming. Let me move back a bit, and then that antenna won't be in your way, and you'll get a better look. You just drift slowly back.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Masai Mara of Kenya. We have elephants grazing here. My name is Tim, and behind camera is Big James. Now, very cool weather. It's very, very nice being back here in the Mara. We actually missed being out. So it seems like our rain just passed over, and our elephants are still much enjoying the very lush green grass here. This seems like a big family. So So there are bulls who just came here to investigate whether some of these females might be estrus. From a distance, the only way to recognize or to tell an elephant bull from a cow is the height and the size. So bulls will always be taller than the females. So sometimes the butler bulls will walk into a herd, and in that presence, they always analyze if some of the females might be in estrus. But if they're not, then these two groups will split up. The butlers walking to a different area while the families head back to where they always reside and where they always go to. So we always see elephants here in this Mara Triangle coming towards the marsh, eat the lush green and enjoy the water, because most of them have calves. We've seen a boom in calf population here with elephants. So it's very, very nice because they walk very short distance towards this marsh. So as you watch these elephants, let me take you over to another live location.
I'm from the Masai Mara. We've actually had a lovely surprise here. While we're sitting watching these lions, we suddenly noticed this rock monitor lizard walking next to the vehicle, and watch its behavior. Can you see how its throat is really puffed out? Look at that, it's sucking it in now, and it's puffing it out again. And it was walking past us, sort of unaware that we were there, and as we noticed it, it suddenly changed its behavior to try and become as intimidating as possible. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. You can see it's keeping us in its peripheral vision. It's puffing that throat out. It's trying to make itself as big, as intimidating as possible. And we actually even heard it exhaling, giving a bit of a hissing sound as it walked away. I think it's now, you can see how it's trying to use a bit of cover, going to a place where it's still trying to go in the same direction. It wants to get up this hill, but it's now gone to a place a little bit further away from us where it feels a bit safer, and it's now using cover to try and remain undetected. Quite an incredible sighting. It just goes to show sometimes when you're sitting quietly in the bush, you know, all the animals, these amazing sightings come to you rather than you going to find them. You can see that tongue going out periodically, and that's actually what it uses as its sense of smell, tasting the air for any scent. Chris, it is a slow beauty, and what's quite fascinating about these rock monitor lizards is that they are quite slow in general. They don't actually hunt moving prey very often. In fact, they more go for something that's as slow as themselves. In fact, tortoises make up a large percentage of their diet. They're known to actually eat those whole. And funny, I think that's probably at the moment what it's been feeding on quite a bit. We've been seeing a lot of tortoise activity around the reserve. Generally, when it's, you know, rain is coming, we start seeing a bit more tortoise activity. So I think that's what it's been feeding on quite a bit at the moment. Other things it'll eat, little insects, little millipedes, crickets, snails, anything that it can get a hold on. But yeah, moving prey, not part of its diet because, as you so rightly said, it's very, very slow moving. So what a wonderful surprise for us to have that walking right past. I think let's have a look at what these lions are up to. And can see that they are just very lazy lions this afternoon. Not up to much more than they were a few minutes ago. I think we'll stay around for about another 10 or 15 minutes, see if they decide to get up, but I think they have found themselves a nice safe spot. They seem incredibly comfortable, and they might be here for the next few hours until it starts to get a bit darker. So we are going to send you to another live location.
Our elephants have come back. The herds have mixed up. Can't tell one from the other. They've got over their shyness and now everyone's friends, and I think they're having a swim together. They're definitely having a feed together. You can hear the objections of a watered thickney. Showing that one's got a little bit of water in its eyes, trying to scrape it out with the trunk. And that one in the background there really isn't enjoying it, trying to get stuff out the eye, but now that's finished. And now the three of them are going to have a bit of a water fight. Maybe I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question. Do they have sensors below the forehead? I mean, they can feel. They can feel the whole way down the trunk. It's one of the most innervated parts of the body. Does that answer your question? I'm not sure what other kinds of sensors you mean. Some of them keep getting out and then coming back again. Dungeon Girl, for the most part, they're walking on the bottom of the water, but they can, on the floor, the ground, but they can swim. And they've been known to swim quite prodigious distances, especially in Lake Kariba. So now these guys are getting out, and the same, I don't know if it's the same dude, but one of them has gone off into the middle of the dam and is now having a right royal swim on his own. It's not very deep, but I think he might be, I don't think he's swimming there, I think he's standing on the ground. Be able to hear the Egyptian geese shouting at each other. An exuberant trumpet from the elephants. Having such a lovely time. And this is all young bulls now. The cows and young cows have headed off to do whatever duties they have. Look after the kids, do their eating, and the young bulls who refuse to take responsibility are still swimming. David, I've got to tell you, I've often thought about jumping in and joining them, but I suspect that they would take a dim view of my joining them. And in actual fact, I think that what they'd do is get out of the water and run. I'm guessing. I don't think they'd come after me. But I tell you what might come after me is the hippo. And I'd actually be more worried about the hippos in the water than I would the elephants. Maybe unreasonably. Let's see if this is actually the end of their swim or if they get back in again. Highly likely they'll get back in. One of them's kind of been left out. He's all on his own there. I think he's just a little bit younger than the others. That's him in the background there. Surya, I don't know that you can particularly effectively communicate with elephants. I think they pick up on body language. And I guess the only thing that I can say to you is that, you know, although they've stopped doing it now, and for good reason. I spoke to a guy once who worked as an elephant handler at Abu Camp, where they used to ride the elephants in Botswana. And you'd go on an elephant-back safari. And he said that the elephants used to communicate with the handlers all the time. They'd rumble at them. When they saw them in the mornings, they'd rumble and trumpet and say, kind of wrap their trunks around them and say hello. And there was definitely some form of communication going like that. But I don't think that from here I could communicate anything other than, a really loud noise, which would make them look up and probably go away. You can sort of interpret the different noises they make. You can tell when a baby is shouting about not being fed. You can tell when they're just greeting each other. You can tell when they're angry. But I don't think you can actually communicate with them in anything like the same complicated way that they communicate with each other. Everyone else has gone away. It's just these two left. Of infinite jest, any other mammals play in the water like this? Baby hippos definitely play in the water like this. Quite a few animals will play in shallower water, like warthogs and wild dogs, even hyenas sometimes. In fact, hyenas definitely. Not in water this deep, though. Obviously aquatic mammals. But I think it's elephants mainly that will go into such deep water because they're very good swimmers. And that is the end of that. Wonderful, wonderful sighting. I think we're going to move on now and see if we can find Nsele the leopardess.
Well, always fun to see elephants having fun in the water, and they know how to do it. You might be wondering why we're showing you that dry patch with lots of dry grass, and just popped out before I said anything. We have been looking for this clan of hyenas for a very long time, and today I managed to spot one of them going into a burrow, and I came, and it's final that we have found the Olololo clan. For those who are new, this is a clan of hyenas that my fellow colleagues in the past years have followed really closely, and then they disappeared off, but today I have found their den, so it means it's good news. We'll be coming to visit them every day. Well, there is one hyena at the moment, as you can see, but definitely she is babysitting. So there is puppies in there, or sorry, I call them cubs in there, and that's why she's around. Hyenas. I wish, she could come out so we could see her face, but there's nothing I can do. I have just to be patient. She will come. Of course, you can see she's very used to vehicles and us talking, so I think she remembers us. Yeah, back there we have elephants as we wait for her to come out. And it's a very big herd of elephants spread out everywhere in the plains. I expect to see lots of young ones in the coming days, because there's lots of pregnant females and look like, they are just about to drop the calves. I hope we can get to experience that. There's so many that are ready. Can be marvelous if we see that. Yeah, lots of youngsters there. Definitely we've had, as they said, a baby boom. Most animals, as you can see, they do really well whenever there is security, enough grazing land, and no human-wildlife conflict. Of course, over here we don't have that, and elephants have found a safe haven to come and breed here. Unlike the previous years, we never used to see this many herds of elephants. But they feel very safe. I don't know if she is back. We can see her. No, she's not yet out. But definitely she is babysitting. Well, she's got nothing to worry, the hyena, because the others are not very far, and also have kept a very safe distance, so she's very safe. Where she is protected against, the wind, so she's very comfortable, and I don't want to disturb her. Well, I think I'm gonna move on. Hopefully I'll come back here and find everybody out. So let's take you to another location.
So we're just sitting at Chitwa, admiring the capabilities of the antelopes in front of us to stay cool. All the impala are huddled in just little patches of shade as well as the water buck. So I thought, why not just sit here? We can enjoy the shade on our vehicle, and let's talk about how all the animals and different organisms in the animal kingdom keep cool. There's so many different mechanisms. But before I do that, I came up with 4 names for our little spotted eagle owl chick. It needs a name. We keep talking about it, the chick, the mini wig, wig junior, and it needs a name. So because Sebwig was male, and we don't actually know if Sebwig really was male, I thought let's go for more feminine names this time. And, all names are technically gender neutral these days anyway, but let's just choose slightly more feminine names instead of Sebwig. So I've tried to stay in the wig. I'm going to give you 4 options, and a poll will come out. You're welcome to pick your favourite one, and by the end of the drive we'll choose one. So number 1, Hootwig. Hoot hoot. Okay, yeah, that's probably not going to win. The second one, Olivia. I'm getting a thumbs up from the cameraman on the back. Olivia. We can shorten it to Liv, and then we can shorten it to Livwig. Evewig. We can shorten it to Evie. And Elara. I love the name Elara. It's one of the smaller moons of Jupiter. So Elara. We can even say Elara Wig if we must. So did you get those names? Shall I go through it again? Hootwig, Olivia, Evewig, and Elara. They're the 4 names, and I thought, why not give it a more feminine name this time around? But in saying that, we really don't know if it's male or female. We might not ever be able to tell. And I'll have another diagram ready for you tomorrow, and you'll see that it's really, really not at day 12 stage yet, according to this book. But if the book is really accurate, then things are about to change. So I hope you're all choosing. Now, bear in mind, it's just to name an animal. I know, it's a big thing, but with the chick, Sebwig was just a joke. We had no idea that we would really ever get so intimate, up close and personal with that little chick. And it's nice to give it some sort of name, a term of endearment, rather than saying chick and Sebwig Jr. and Sebwig V2. I think it's just a little bit nicer for us to have a name. So it's in your hands. It's over to you. So as I mentioned, we are at Chitwa. The dam's behind us. We will turn around at some point, but I just thought it's remarkable how they're all staying in the shade. And because it is so hot, and we've all probably told you 1,000 times that talking of cooling down would be a really great topic. And naturally, the one that we know the most is sweating. Yes, delightful. Because that's how humans do it. And sweat is just water. I mean, it's really not anything disgusting. It's just water with a little bit of potassium, some salts and minerals, which is why when you sweat excessively, or you've maybe been in the heat, or you really need to hydrate, not just with water, but sometimes you need to take those electrolytes or make sure you get salt back in your system. So once water comes on your skin, as it evaporates, which is very natural in the heat, it carries the heat away from your body. So it's removing the heat when it evaporates. And this helps reduce your overall body temperature. And that's exactly what most organisms are doing. Humans when we sweat, birds when they're Gular Fluttering, cats when they're panting, it's all a form of evaporative cooling. The moisture will evaporate and then take the heat away. So it's just basically drawing heat away from the body. And in our system, our biological system, sweat is produced from sweat glands, which are located in specific areas of the body, but they're sort of activated and controlled by the hypothalamus, which is obviously an area in the brain. And the fact that humans can sweat so much is very efficient for us. What it means is that you can run longer distances at faster speeds than other animals, for example, because we have that method of cooling. And it's said to stem from way back. And hunters and gatherers, the hunters could hunt game during the hottest parts of the day, whereas most predators were forced to rest because it's far too hot for them. So it just provides a really efficient system for our body to draw away heat and to cool the brains. It's obviously very important that our brains don't overheat, and we'll come to that a little bit later because there's a few specialised organisms, Thomson's gazelle being one of them, sharks being another one, that have a specialised system in their brain in place to make sure they don't overheat. But of course, these impala are definitely not sweating. They don't have that luxury. FC.
Hello everybody. I'm just trying to figure out where on earth we are right now. Well, I know where we are. I'm just trying to figure out where we're going. It would appear that the map I have is not the same as the map that Lauren has. Anyway, that's okay. We'll figure it out as we go, I suppose. Right, okay, on we go. What we're doing is we're heading off to see if we can help find and solo the leopardess, who we're lucky.
Well, we're here in the middle of nowhere in search of anything, but yeah, got a beautiful herd of elephants. I'm gonna show you over here, all spread out, enjoying the grass and shrubs. Always peaceful to see them in that manner. Here is a very big female. It looks like she's one of those ones that I'm expecting to see a bath, or one of us can see a bath, but there are very many like this, and for some reason they have decided to come and do it here. I've seen about 2 in the last 3 days that are very new, so it is I think time that that they have decided to come and give birth here. She's got very beautiful tusks, as you can see. So she's from a family that grow very, beautiful tusks like her. As always, the matriarch is the leader of a herd of elephants. She is the history carrier. She knows all about where it is safe, where there is enough food, where there is water in dry season. She knows all that, and she pulls the string in case there's a situation where there's a lion or they're moving towards a human habitated area. She is the one to talk to everybody and tell them what to do. One of the things that she plays a very big role in such a case, this usually gives a warning for everybody to come closer and for them to move faster. It is evident that she does that, and then after they've gone past, she'll tell everybody to relax, and you'll see everybody sort of easing down and starting to graze. Well, it's a beautiful sight here, but I've got to move on, see if I can find something else.
So from elephants in the Masai Mara to a single elephant bull right in Ambient Phinda Private Game Reserve, we've got a beautiful sighting in front of us. I always find it amazing when you see elephants out in the open, especially with cloud cover in the background. I just think it's such a majestic sighting, that brown sort of grey of the elephant against the grey colour of the backdrops, the clouds. You can see that this bull is just slowly feeding. He's found some really luscious grass here. And he's giving us a wonderful show. We see that he's got a collar on the top of his head. You can see that little lump there. That's a tracking collar. And the reason he's wearing that collar is he's actually a new elephant to this reserve. We've recently introduced 2 male elephants from Tembe Elephant Park. And it's just because we want to have a few more older bulls on the reserve. They are very important in the elephant dynamic. You were talking earlier about how important the matriarchs are and their sort of responsibility to the social structure of elephants. And elephant bulls are also equally as important to the development of the young males. They actually keep them in line. They suppress them from going into must until they're old enough to handle it at about 25 years old. So very, very important to elephant social structure, these elephant bulls. And that's why we needed a few more. Also great for a little bit of genetic diversity within the herd. I'm just going to turn around because he's just gone behind us. So we're going to have a quick turn around, keep him in our eye line. Rachi has just asked a really intelligent question. So before I turn around, I want to thank you for your question, and I just want to answer it. They do actually experience ticks. Now, they've got very thick skin, elephants. You know, the thickest part is about 2 inches, so very few ticks can actually penetrate that, but there are certain ticks, specialized ticks, that are able to penetrate elephant skin. Just very few species. Similar to rhino. In fact, rhino have a very specialized type of tick that's actually called a rhino tick. Can't list the species of ticks that infect elephant, but there are a few, select few, that can actually get in them. And they're soft skin folds. You often see sort of around the little skin folds in the neck area, maybe in between them where the skin's a little bit thinner. Okay, let me just turn around and get us another view of this elephant bull. So I'm going to send you to another live location while we try and get another view.
So talking of sweating, which is such a delightful topic, birds, like these Egyptian geese, cannot sweat, but they're warm-blooded, so they have to find their own way to regulate their temperature on days like today. Shade will help, but as we know, I have mentioned that they sort of do something called Gular Fluttering, and they just vibrate muscles and tissue in their throat. So, if you can imagine us doing that, but they don't use sound. And the fluttering sort of helps pump in air, and the air is obviously assisting in evaporation, which it takes the heat away from the body. So when you open your mouth, there's also a lot of soft tissue, thin membranes, and this will also assist in thermoregulation. And the more a bird vibrates these tissues in the throat, then the more the moist tissue in the mouth is exposed to the air, so the more it's going to cool down. So it doesn't take up a lot of energy, and it's said to be extremely efficient. And that's not all birds do. No, it's not. My favourite one is the pooping. Yes, not all birds, but birds cannot sweat at all. So some birds have taken to, let's just say storks, very graceful, gorgeous birds. They have taken to defecating on their legs. Vultures do it too. So it's obviously not the same defecation process as humans, but it actually has a name. It's called urohydrosis, and because it's mostly liquid, it works in the exact same way as sweat. Now, it's not sweat, it's not water and salts. It is poop in a bird form, but it's the exact same sort of mechanism. And as the poop dries on the legs, the heat is carried away, which brings down the overall body temperature. Now, there's also a thought that vultures use it to cool down, but it may have a sort of secondary function, which is to decontaminate their legs from any bacteria after they've been standing and rotting meat all day. Yes, but the primary function is most likely to cool the bird down. So it's urohydrosis, and of course it's a liquid form of defecation, not solid. fascinating. So they have two unique specializations of cooling down because they cannot sweat. They don't have the luxury of sweating like we do. And of course, birds can go into the water, especially Egyptian geese. They can stand in the water, can pop their bottoms in the water, and that will assist in cooling down as well. So they do have that luxury. Although I must say they don't seem bothered by the heat at all. I think it's just us humans that like to complain about it. Why not? Now you can see just in the background over here we have hippos. Hippos are always at Chitradam, and they have their own unique mechanism, another specialized adaptation. I sort of went into it the other day, but they have very, very specialized secretions that they secrete from special glands on their skin. And it's sort of a oily substance, comes out clear, then it polymerizes, and it produces a red color. And it's hipposudoric acid and norhipposudoric acid, and it's two substances, and it's believed to sort of be made from a metabolite of amino acids. So it's naturally produced in the body. It's secreted through glands on the skin, and not only does it act as a sunblock, it also helps them to retain moisture. So it stops the skin drying out in the sun and helps with keeping the skin hydrated. So it doesn't necessarily keep them cool, but it's also another mechanism that keeps their skin hydrated, protected from the sun. And in terms of cooling down, they're already immersed in water. I mean, that's exactly where I'd love to be right now. They're already in a body of water. And for mammals, at least, we lose heat very quickly in water. If any of you have been diving or snorkeling or just even swimming in the ocean, let's not say a swimming pool, in the ocean or a natural freshwater body, you'll notice that your body temperature drops quite quickly. You lose heat in a liquid medium. Oh! My expert. It's just caught something. This monitor lizard's just caught something huge. What is it? It's attacking a terrapin. I can't believe this. It's got to get in that shell. It's got to attack through the carapace. FC, can you just let us know you're still there? I've never seen this before. Is a terrapin already dead? I don't know. You can see its appendages, its legs and its arms, if you like, are still exposed, but its head's inside. Whether it's still alive or not, I do not know. Reptile versus reptiles. I don't think that animal's dead. Can you see that? You can see right through the carapace. I think some flesh has been removed already. I think this monitor lizard has killed it already and actually eaten some of it. Sassy Cassie, no, they can't harm humans, not monitor lizards. They have got a powerful bite. I wouldn't necessarily want to offer my hand to one, but no, they won't hurt humans. And reptiles, they are their own unique grouping of animals when it comes to cooling down and warming up. They're ectothermic, very different. But I'll come into this a little bit later. Let's just watch this incredible sighting. Just shows you the shell doesn't protect you from all predators. Yeah, this terrapin's no longer alive. Spas, no, I've never observed that. A monitor lizard swallowing a whole tortoise. I've never observed that. I don't think it's possible. Snakes have special jaws that they can unhinge to allow them to swallow prey whole, but I don't believe that monitor lizards can, and I don't think they would want to swallow the carapace and plastron. It's made of bone. You can see this individual here wants... Is that an egg? This individual wants the flesh, the inner part of the terrapin. You see his tongue, long forked tongue. That's how they taste, that's how they navigate their landscape. It's gorgeous. Is he leaving it? Is he letting it be? It's a challenge. But I really do believe the terrapin's dead, which means... Oh, just eat that egg. Wow. That was an egg. I don't know where that egg came from. I don't know who it belonged to. But he's just swallowed it. He's not going to give up on this. He knows what he wants, it's just how to get it. They've got really sharp claws, but not strong teeth, not strong enough to crunch through bones. Richard, you're right. This is really fascinating and incredible to watch. But yes, of course, it's sad for the terrapin. Rest in peace, little one. Nature has... It's tough. It's tough to watch many things in nature. But of course, it's the reality out here. It just shows you how powerful these lizards really are. See, it's getting the flesh of the legs. is actually already feasted on a lot of this terrapin, now that I look closely. Did you get that name? Anoni News. News. Okay. I don't know if I got that right, but I really hope so. You're asking what's the difference between a turtle and a terrapin. Sea turtles, you will only find in the sea turtles are aquatic and, generally speaking, oceanic. They're carnivorous and they will eat other organisms, be it coral, be it a sponge. They still eat other animals, and they have flippers. They're not really able to walk on land, and sea turtles do pull themselves up onto land to lay their eggs, but it's a big effort. They're pulling themselves up using their flippers. They're not actually able to stand on sort of four legs. And terrapins are also aquatic, freshwater, not in the ocean, and they're said to be omnivorous, so they will eat vegetation as well as other organisms, and they can retract their head. Turtles cannot. No sea turtle, leatherback, loggerhead, green, hawksbill, whatever, out of the 7 species can retract their head back into the shell. They've got a very flexible neck, but they can't fully bring their head back in. Terrapins can, and they do it in a sidewards motion. It's almost like an S bend. Now, they have got legs. They can walk on land. They've got a little bit sort of webbed feet for the aquatic life, but they've also got claws for walking on land. So they've got the best of both worlds. They can walk on rough terrain, and they can also swim through water. Now, tortoises are terrestrial. They live on land. They're not aquatic. Completely vegetarian. And they can retract their heads back into the shell very quickly and directly. They don't need to use a funny S movement. And they don't have webbed feet because they're not aquatic. So they've just got very, very sharp claws and strong legs. That's the difference between the three. Noel, good question. I imagine there's not much sort of meat, if you like, on the legs. Very tough skin, rough skin covered in scales, which is a feature of reptiles. I imagine he wants the organs, as most carnivores and predators do. I imagine he wants what's inside the shell, not the legs. That will consist of bone, tough skin, and claws. Ooh. Doesn't sound appealing, does it? I think he wants all the organs inside and the muscles. Wow, what a sighting. I think we're going to sit here at this dam and see what else happens.
From that dam now back to where we are here in the Mara with the buffalo in the water. How cool is this? We hardly come across buffaloes in the water, and the main reason why this buffalo is here is because he's cooling down. He's not alone. There's one actually just next to him, but look at how this guy is submerged in the mud. Excuse me. How cool is that? Actually blends in so well. You can't really tell if there's a buffalo there. So old bulls will always be in such places where they have access to water, where they have access to good grazing ground. And because they've lost fur on their body, because old bulls tend to lose fur, so biting insects get easy access to their skin because they actually worn out their skin. So if you look at the side or the flank of his stomach, you see just how he's actually worn out. You can see some bare parts there. And that's the reason why they always walk into the water and mud. There's a common sandpiper actually up on his horns. Very nice. Eating some flies. You can tell he's so much relaxed, chewing his cud while cooling off. It was too hot this afternoon, but now it's cloudy, almost getting some rains, but still the water is so cool, so that's why he's in there. While his partner or his friend is just taking his time in the mud. Sometimes old bulls fall prey. We come across lions with old buffalo kills, and this is the reason why. So right here, they're vulnerable, even though they're two. So by the time he wakes up and the lions come here, then that's an easy target for lions. Sometimes they even spend their whole day there because it's such a nice place where it's cool. And actually, from him being submerged in the mud like that, insects don't have access to him. You can see the entire part of his body is actually covered in mud. And that's a protective layer that they always cover themselves, hence the name mud boys, where they always cover themselves with mud when they come to a mud wallow like this. So immediately the other one walks out of the water, he just head to mud wallow where he'll cover himself in mud, and then as it sticks off, then it becomes a protective layer from suns and also insects. They don't travel a long distance, so within where they are, which you call that home range, they always occupy a very small home range, which is about 3 to 4 square kilometers. And most of the time you come across these bulls, they're always near a watercourse or maybe a marsh area. Very, very nice to see. You can tell this is a place that they used to come. You can tell by the spot where he's actually lying on. They knew that there are no crocs here. That's why he's so much comfortable in the water. Sometimes these tributaries that feed the Mara sometimes can harbor crocodile. Oh, he's now waking up. Look at his body covered in mud. Does he want to change position or maybe walk out? A little ear scratch. Megan, thank you so much for your question. They can live up to 26 years. But sometimes we find that females will always live longer than these bulls. You find that sometimes, because the females never leave the natal herds, so all the bulls, when they become old, they always pick a spot where they get to rest and spend the rest of their time. And so this can fall victim to lions, even hyenas. Because females walk in very big herds, sometimes they also protect themselves. So their lifespan is about 26. So that is one very nice lifespan, actually getting to spend in this kind of terrain. He looks like he wants to join his friend. So let's see if he'll walk out, or maybe he wants to still stay in the water, because actually that is a very nice jacuzzi for him. Yes. Little stretch. You don't want to be left alone in this water, because this place is full of lions. So if lions come and surround you, there's no escape. So he needs to join his friend. What a very nice sighting here, watching this old buffalo bull in this water. So as he's contemplating whether to join his friend or maybe stay there, let me take you over to another live location.
Look at that tongue. Oh, Dave. You can see they're still breathing very, very heavily. I mean, the one is still trying to catch his breath there. So, yeah, it took a lot of effort. I'll try cool down a little bit, and he might go join. But everything has to happen very quick for these guys, because they never know what competition could be around. So they're not going to waste too much time trying to cool down. Soon enough, they'll both be feeding, just to try and get those bellies full before anything disturbs them or tries stealing the kill from them. And also because it's close to water, it means anything could be coming to drink. Actually, what type of habitat do cheetah prefer? If you look at a cheetah is a speed animal. So for them to attain the speeds, or to achieve the speeds that they reach when they run, they need very open areas. So you do find them in sub-arid areas like where we are at current. You do find them in grassland savannas, where it's just grass and a few big trees here and there. Bushveld savanna, where it's a little bit too thick, they struggle a little bit, but they need plains also to thrive well. So just that they can catch or reach those speeds and to be able to hunt. So a bit of cover for them to do that, but open enough to actually attain those speeds. Because you can imagine if it's such a shrubby area, then they will struggle to reach those speeds, and it's the only thing they rely on to actually catch prey or else run from threat. So they need a little bit of visibility, a little bit of space for those kind of movements and agility, if I can call it that. So that's where you find your cheetahs. Which basically would cover most of Africa, but I don't see them being in very thick areas. So a very good question about where you do find them. And obviously, being cheetahs, they can't climb, so they'll always be terrestrial, unlike the leopard, which some people still confuse with, that can go up a tree. Debbie, are they still with the female and cubs? It looks like the female and cubs have actually moved off a little bit. And this could be another attempt that they try lure the female in, especially with resources like food and water in proximity. So it's quite a smart move for these boys to have done what they've done, catching prey after they were pursuing a female like that. So it could be a way to try and invite her back to come feed, which would actually be a very interesting interaction to see what would happen. Would they even allow that female to come and feed, or even those cubs? So yeah, that for its own to unfold would be a very intricate and mysterious interaction. And like it always is in the bush, you never know what's going to unfold next or what's going to happen next. So we will scan the area again and make a loop around and see if the female and the cubs have gone too far off, or they still in the vicinity, and what else could come into the picture here. I mean, there's things like jackals, there's things like hyenas. This could be really, really interesting by the end of the day, or when the sun just starts going down. So while we do that, we'll send you off to another location.
We have just been following this monitor lizard, and it's been incredible. The lapwings had a complete standoff with it, then decided to start dive bombing its head. Look, I don't know, that's not a lapwing, is it? Wow. Lots of unhappy birds here. Look at its movement, that sort of catwalk swagger. It's the most energy efficient way for an organism with this body design to move on land, with that heavy, heavy, powerful tail that normally acts as a rudder. It's not easy. They're not entirely equipped for land. Long claws. They've got to kind of lift up their feet rather than drag their feet. Elissa, that's a really good question, because a monitor lizard is obviously a reptile. And because they are ectothermic, that obviously means they control their body temperature through the environment. So whether it's too hot, they go in the shade. When it's too cold, they come out in the sun. It's very, very simple. And they don't use any type of internal regulation, if you like. So then they spend less time dealing with their temperature than mammals do, which means they need far less food. Does that make sense? Mammals, warm-blooded mammals, need to eat a lot, especially those that are hunting and using a lot of energy. Look at this lab boy. And because reptiles are not expending any energy on thermoregulation or maintaining their own body temperature through metabolic processes, they eat far less. So you'll find that depending on the season, reptiles really don't need to eat every day. Now they can. Summer offers a lot of opportunities for reptiles to get bigger and stronger, ready for reproducing if you're a female, ready for mating if you're a male. But reptiles need to eat far less than the likes of mammals or any warm-blooded animal. Oh, look at that. Wow. Is he drinking? How sweet. Sassy Cassie generally know if they've got enough energy, and especially in summer when it's warm, they'll be solar powered, then they walk far greater distances. But they have small territories, so generally speaking they don't. And all in all, reptiles really don't move great distances. Even snakes, even terrapins, because of their sort of biology, because they're ectothermic and because they don't generate as much energy. The only ones that do travel great distances are, of course, your sea turtles. So that's sort of an exception to the rule. But, you know, even a thick cloud passing over the sun can actually greatly affect small reptiles. That's how heavily reliant they are on the ambient temperature and the sun. A cloud would really, really affect their thermoregulation. And of course, sensitivity to the environment means that climate change will pose a huge risk for reptiles. And it's slightly worrying. There's a paper that actually estimates 20%, a fifth of all lizard species could go extinct by 2080. And I know we think that's really far away, but it's actually not that far away. You know, we're almost in 2021, so that's worrying. And they say that even if we could completely halt global warming tomorrow, which is obviously not going to happen, they still say that 6% of lizard species are doomed to extinction, which is very, very sad. And that's all due to greenhouse gases that are obviously in the atmosphere. And I'm sure the lizard in Mexico, Mexico's blue spiny lizard, has actually almost been driven to extinction. That's very sad. So Sassy Cassie's walking away for you. It looks like he's walking far, but he's really, really not. But we're still going to sit here at Chitwa and see what else comes by.
Well, I found my lions, and they are lying on, most of them, but a few are standing up. That is Olalashe. Sorry, Kijana. Pardon me. That is Kijana, one of the main dominant males of the Olololo pride. And today, we have more females than usual. I've seen Olalashe somewhere else with one female, and then here I have 4 females and Kijana. So it means the pride is coming back together. More and more females are showing up, which is very good news. Yeah, lions in the wild live for 15 years and about 20 in captivity. These guys need to eat almost every other day, because whatever is available is not enough to keep them going for more days. So for example, a zebra weighs 300 kilos. Each male will eat about 30 to 40 kilos, so it's not enough for 5. So they will need to eat for about every other day to sustain their health and their size. But if they kill something like a buffalo, they can go for much longer. So these guys need to eat almost every other day. Well, in their territory, it's a prime estate. It's a prime territory with a few watering holes and marshes, essential and good for a good healthy territory. So there's no shortage of hippo and big game like buffalo and zebra. This is the collared lioness. She's one of the old girls of the Olololo. Rosaline, how many lions are in a pride? It differs from one pride to the other. If that's what you're asking, it differs from one pride to the other. Already we know that in this pride there is about 6 lionesses and 2 males. There used to be 9, but there is one that's split and left. So there's actually 3 that's split and left. So it depends on the area. You can find lots of lionesses, up to 9 and 5 males, but it differs from one area to the other. We cannot specify exactly how many lionesses and lions are in a pride. It looks like they're waking up. It's quite cool and nice, so they will be waking up to, maybe pinpoint where their next meal will come from. Well, anyway, I think this is my spot that I'm gonna stay for a little bit. So let's take you to another location.
Welcome back to the other side of the Mara, where we have a lone hippo bull who seems like not very happy. That's an aggressive display. Keep off, don't get any closer. This is the same hippo bull that we always see in a mini pool. He's all covered in mud. It's dinner time for this hippo, so he was walking out of the water to go and graze. And it seems like he's not determined to carry on. So he's slowly heading back. Look at the way he's looking at us. So this bull was once ousted out from the river, and because he was fought over by a very big bull, so he came out here and he sought refuge in a mini pool. So that's where he gets to spend the rest of his time, and that's where we always encounter him, where we always see him, in that small pool. So he's trying to hide there while watching us. Look at him. Very cool. That's to show off that I'm not happy. So if you look at his back, he has scars that have already healed. That tells you that once upon a time, he had a very big fight. very, very nice to see this kind of big bull. Benson, thank you so much for your question. Hippos have about 42 teeth. So we find that sometimes they get to lose their teeth. So I would put them to be about 42. But during the fights, you find that those big cannons sometimes will break off because of seen hippos fighting, and you find that those big cannons get to break off as they always try to bite each other. You saw how big his mouth was when he opened, so that is one of their most defensive display when they come across other big bulls. Liam, thank you so much for your question. I think I'll put him to be about 9 to 10 because you can tell how he's slowing his pace, and once that these bulls get to be old, they always get to be a very big fight amongst the bulls in the water. So you find that to be ousted out, you have to be old. And sometimes you find that the younger bulls also get ousted out of where they will be, especially when it dries up like this. When these pools or when the river water levels get low, you find that there's always big fights. And because everyone is scrambling for space. So we always give space to this kind of big game, and he saw that he had plenty of space to either head to where he wanted or head back to where he came from. So as he head back, I'm sure he'll still come back and go and graze. I'll take you over to another live location.
So warm welcome to Ambient Ngala. We're just sitting here with a herd of zebra, and you can see how the sunlight is like falling on these zebra. Especially look at the mane, and you'll see this youngster here that's quite fluffy in comparison to the rest. There's quite a bit of golden colors on that one, and a beautiful landscape. This is an open area we crossed this morning looking in search of some ostriches and wild dogs and possibly cheetah. But of course, zebra being my favorite, they always get a bit of a mention. So I'm Nikki, I'm going to be your ranger for this afternoon, and on camera we have Owen. So as we were going down, we're actually heading down into an area to go and see if we can find some of the male lions that we saw yesterday afternoon. They were seen this morning not too far from where we are now, but because it's warm, we want to spend some time with some of the more common animals, and then later on, as it cools down, start heading towards where those lions are. But beautiful colors with these zebras, and also there's a wildebeest here as well. But I just wanted to go back, just look at each one of them has a very specific stripe pattern. And I just enjoyed like the tall grass with the sun, the angle on it. And also just seeing the interaction between the different zebra. You can see there was a stallion earlier on that was pushing one of the younger stallions out. And then of course just bringing all the females back together again. Look at how it's just pricked at the ears. It's just probably scanning because they've been feeding all the way from the left to the right here. So maybe just checking to make sure there's no other dangers around in the area. How incredible is this? Just seeing the colors, especially around the mouth, see how black it is, and then quite a few like small, more faintish stripes, and then you get those broad black stripes that run along the neck. You can just hear them as they pull the grass. I'm trying to see where that wildebeest is. So there was a lone wildebeest that's with the zebra, and one of the reasons he's with them is because of safety in numbers. The other thing is they eat different levels of the grass. So this zebra will tend, and all the others will tend to eat the taller strands of grass, opening it up for the wildebeest to eat the shorter grass. Which is incredible. We'll wait for the zebra to just move in behind the bush, and then we'll probably carry on with our drive.
Welcome back to and Beyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. When last you were with us, we were watching that beautiful elephant walk off into the distance, and that's exactly what he did. But we did come across a sign of one of our other large mammals. You can see we've got a dung midden here, and you can see the difference in color in this patch of dung right in the middle. And it's very dark in color. You can see it's very fresh. So actually the territorial male has just come and dropped his dung, and it's brought in a whole lot of visitors. You can see all these dung beetles that are busy trying to fight over these balls. And what's quite interesting is the size of the balls and the behavior of these dung beetles. Now these large purple ones here, these are large copper dung beetles. And they are what we call rollers. You can see that they are building these balls, and in fact here's one rolling it off at the moment. There's one trying to to steal it, which is what most of them are actually doing at the moment, instead of putting in the hard work themselves. They're busy. Look at them, they're having a proper fight over it. The one on the top has got the right position. You know, he's going to try and flick that other one backwards and try and get him on his back so he has enough time to escape. It's really quite entertaining. You can sit and watch these dung beetles for hours because they're so funny. Yeah, and if you go back into this middle, there's this huge wall going on here. I can't even tell. There's probably like 10 or 12 dung beetles fighting over this one ball of dung. And we can see why. It's a massive ball, you know, would attract females. The main goal of these balls of dung is actually, they're called a brood dung ball. So they will try and attract a female with this ball, and then they will together lay one single egg in that ball of dung. And when that egg hatches, it actually feeds on the ball of dung. So the larger the ball of dung, the better chance that egg will, or the larvae will survive having enough food before it's grown into a fully fledged beetle. So that's why they're fighting over these larger balls. It's so funny to watch. Now you can see the pile of dung behind me. It's actually moving a little bit. Sky Doogie, exactly. Dung beetle battle indeed. In fact, I don't remember actually seeing this many dung beetle going after one single ball before. You often see a few, but this is what kind of drew our attention when we drove past. We were like, geez, that's so interesting. Look at how many there are and how they're fighting over single balls. It's quite funny to watch. And we have a look down at this side. You can see that the dung itself is actually moving. You can see it heaving up, you know, as we sort of looking at it. It's kind of growing up, and what's happening is it's these same large copper dung beetles just going under and trying to pull some of this dung out. They're actually probably making the ball underneath there. You might see some of them pull this ball out, having a hidden one, and try and get it away from all this this anarchy that's going on. You can see one's climbing out. Now, there are some type of species of dung beetle that are called tunnelers. And instead of rolling these balls of dung away from the site of the dung itself, they'll actually rather tunnel down right underneath the dung where they find them, which obviously is, you know, sort of a more efficient use of their energy. They don't have to walk so far. These poor guys have to first keep away all the other dung beetle trying to find, steal their balls of dung. And then they have to roll it until they find a soft patch of dung, which you can imagine can be incredibly difficult. I mean, just this area around us has got very compacted soil, so it's going to probably be a while until they manage to find some soft earth that they can effectively dig down. And even with these big balls of dung, they're going to have to dig quite deep, these holes quite deep, to manage to bury those balls of dung. Oh, so I think what we'll do is we're going to leave these little dung beetles to their battles, and we're going to go and see what else we can find. We've been looking for some prides of lions in the area. There's one pride that stays around this side that hasn't been seen for a few days, so hopefully we get to find them.
My attention was arrested briefly by the call of a virtual starling, and it wasn't shouting at this Blokopkochomandar or blue-headed triagama. It was shouting, I think, at a little flock of green wood hoopus, and I suspect they were fighting over nesting sites, because they are both tree hole nesters. Either that, or there is also a snake or something in the tree in addition to the Blokopkochomandar. Now, I don't know where you are from in the world, but I would humbly suggest that you should try and say the word Blokopkochomandar, because it'll make you feel good in your heart to say the word Blokopkochomandar. Is that correct, Niels? Blokopkochomandar. One word or two? It's two words. Blokopkochomandar. Anyway, what we're going to do is just drift slowly. No, in fact, we're not. I think we're going to lose signal. So let's go into this tree here, where there are a whole lot of those green wood hoopus, probably seeking out potential nesting sites and maybe little things to eat. You can see one kind of on the right-hand side there, Niels, on the branches that go up towards the right. Naturally, that one's moved. Just zoom around on the tree there. You should pick up the flock. There are about 6 of them in there, knocking about the place. Up towards the right, there we go. Yes, no, not yet. Keep going right. There's one on the far right of the tree now. Up a bit. Yeah, he's in there. There we go. You got him. Naturally, he's gone and silhouetted himself against the sky. Anyway, he's in a torchwood tree. And that's them you can hear talking. As many of you will know that they are called the Hyegabafazi, or the laughing women. I personally have never heard a woman or any other human being laugh like a Hyegabafazi, but there it is. The laughing woman or green wood hoopoo. Unfortunately, I cannot drive from here because I'm 99% sure that our signal will hit the pavement, and that'll be the end of that. So I shall just be quiet, and you will go somewhere else, and then I shall move on.
How incredible is this? One of the rangers, not even 200 meters from where we saw those zebras, found this leopard up in the tree. Now, just the way that he's like panting quite heavily tells us that it's probably like just quite warm for him. And so that's why he moved up in the tree. There is a slight breeze blowing. He's in the shade. But I want you to have a look at the color of this leopard's eyes, like this very light bluish color. Now, for some of our viewers that have been following us for the last few months, so this is one of the males that's referred to as the Tswatsumotsu male. So he was born in the drainage line, referring to the Tswatsumotsu drainage line that's not too far from us. But you can see he is staring off to the back. Now, there were some impala early on that he was looking at. And it might be that he's just using this also as a vantage point to look at them and see if they do come closer. See the leaves moving in the background. Imagine just being in the shade on top of the branch there, how nice and cool it must be in comparison to lying down in the tall grass, where necessarily you might not get a nice cool breeze blowing over you. But it is a beautiful animal. Just notice the spot pattern. Like if you look around from the ear down, there's not a lot of spots. It actually fades off, and there's just like this line of spots there, and quite a lot of white in there. But if you go towards the belly, look at how those spots turn into rosettes. So a bunch of spots with like a brown patch right in the middle fused together. See how he's turning around the whole time? I wonder maybe if it is the impala that he was looking at, or maybe there's some franklins or something small that's moving in the tall grass. And he's just probably putting in a bit of time to investigate and see what it is. Grace, they do look similar in many ways, but if you look at the cheetah in comparison to the leopard, so let's say those cheetah that were seen at Tswalu Kalahari, you'll notice that in order to compensate to be the fastest land animal in the world, the cheetah had to give up something, size and strength. And because of that, they had to drop quite a bit of weight in order to be lean and quite fast. But now a leopard would almost be like if you had to find the combination between something as big as a lion that's completely strong but that doesn't have the speed of a cheetah, and also something that's not as small as a cheetah, something in between. You'll probably be looking at the leopard. Because pound for pound, the leopard would probably be stronger than that of a lion. I've heard about leopards before, especially young males, or some of the older males, but really nice and big, that's capable of dragging their own body weight and slightly more into a tree. I think the biggest record I've ever heard about is almost 100-kilogram giraffe, so that's a 200-pound giraffe that's been dragged up a tree by a leopard. And I've also seen them dragging young zebra foals up in the trees, young buffaloes, calves. So they are incredibly strong animals. But also another difference between them is like, so cheetah is the Hindi word which means the spotted one. And most of the spots on a cheetah, so you see around the face of the leopard, around the neck area, so the cheetah will have those spots. And where the eyes are, the cheetah will have tear marks, those black marks that run along the eye, because they are more equipped to hunt in the day, where leopards could hunt in the day, but they do prefer hunting at night as well, because sometimes the chances are just that much better for them because they can see better than their prey. Whereas cheetah, again, on the other hand, they don't want to hunt at night. They do in some areas, especially over full moon and that, and it's just general behavior. However, if they do move when the other predators are moving, the chances are more likely that something like a leopard or lion could kill them. And so they try and avoid when these bigger predators are moving, the bigger cats. Just look at the size of this one's teeth. You can see he's panting quite heavily, his tongue going out of his mouth, back in, out, back in. Look at the way that his neck is moving as well. So he's just, by panting like that, he's just trying to lose as much heat as he possibly can and cool down. But I'm definitely myself and Owen are going to stay here for the next little while and see if this leopard's going to stay or if eventually it's going to carry on and see if there's any hunting opportunity.
Back to our two male cheetahs. The other one has just joined into the action now, creating a bit of space there on the rump, and working that space, just trying to get all to the juicy, meaty parts. You can see how quickly they're trying to gobble. Second one trying to work the skin. It's a little bit tough, especially for their teeth and for their biting power, which they don't really have much of a biting power. So they're trying to actually use the other one as it feeds to try and tear that skin. Yep, just got a gap in there. It's really tough for the second guy to get anything going there. Just trying to work that bit of skin there. James, do brown hyena chase cheetahs off their kills as much as spotted hyenas do? Sure, that's a bit of a tricky question, but very interesting. I like these kind of questions. Now, think about it in demographically as to the species involved. Now, with your brown hyena tends to be a more solitary species, whereas if you look at your spotted hyena is actually more in clans. And then the second part that you have to look at is your spotted hyena is actually much of a hunter than your brown hyena. Your brown hyena is actually more of the scavenger than your than your spotted hyena. So in terms of pound to pound, your spotted hyena has bigger chances in scaring off these guys, whereas your brown hyena, on the contrary, sometimes would wait its turn, especially when there's like two males like this and it's on its own. It might come in proximity, but then it's 2 versus 1, and pound for pound they almost the same size. It will try raise its hair and try intimidate, but sometimes it doesn't really work. But if it's a female cheetah, on the contrary, and it's 1-on-1, yes, then the brown hyena has an upper hand in that sense. So your spotted hyena, hands down, have the upper hand on cheetahs, given both male or female. The spotted hyena would have a much upper hand. But in terms of how often it would happen, that would also have to depend on the density of those species. So, I mean, in places where density is higher with brown hyena, you're going to see more interaction with brown hyena, obviously, and vice versa if the density is higher with spotted. So to say how often becomes a bit of a trick question. But I hope the way I've dissembled or decoded everything answers your question. But a very interesting question in how you worded it and how you wanted to find out in the 3 species involved there. Yeah, very, very interesting. And sometimes you do actually get both spotted and brown hyena in the same carcass, and then they would both chase, let's say, these cheetahs off, and they would have a bit of a squabble, and obviously then numbers come into play, and the spotted having the numbers in most cases then wins. You do sometimes actually find very strange interactions where I've seen both hyenas feed on one carcass. Not something small though, but yes, big carcasses, you do sometimes find that. You also sometimes find jackal also in the mix, where the hyenas could be busy feeding in the hind quarters there and burying their head inside the carcass, while the sneaky jackal comes and feeds somewhere around the head, while the hyenas don't see it, and so on. So yeah, these interactions do happen out in the wild, and that's what keeps it interesting. Looks like these two boys have now made big gap for them to actually get to feed in unison there. So let's see how far they can go with this carcass.
Well, I don't know how much they'll eat, but my lions here have eaten, I think, about 2 days ago. They are still very well fed, but definitely looks like one of the females was very interested in a toppy that was far away. It means they will need to eat either tonight or tomorrow. Like I said, a big pride like this needs to eat almost every day, because most of the game available cannot fully satisfy their bellies. Lions can eat every day if a meal is available. They accumulate a lot of fat, so in lean times they can go for longer without eating. And you know, in the very bad times, in a really like bad times, the lions would go up to around 10 to 14 days without eating. A lion that hasn't eaten for 14 days looks very skinny and scrawny. Actually, it is a very sad look to look at, because it is just bones and skin, and you don't want to look at a lion that hasn't eaten for those days. So they do deteriorate very fast if they don't have a meal. So that's why they need to eat almost every other day. Well, for this pride, they don't have an issue, because even if the big, the small game disappears completely, they will be able to gang up and go for something like a big buffalo, which is not easy, but because there are many, they are able to hunt.
Came across 2 hippos here in Buffelshoek. Oh no, wait. Can you zoom in closer? What kind of hippos are they? Oh, it's a hyena, you say? A spotted hyena. Wow, I don't know what you guys look like. No, I don't. Now I do. Like 2 big hippos, having the best time in this heat. I am only teasing. I'm just a little bit bitter that I don't see the Juma clan anymore. And I think I know why. By the time we start our safari at 5:30 in the morning, it's already 100 degrees Celsius. It's already so hot. I think the hyenas, the spotted hyenas here, at least in the Lowveld, have shifted a little bit to be slightly more nocturnal. Many organisms do that. Even in swallow, you won't really see pangolins or aardvarks anymore. They've gone completely nocturnal due to the change in season. And hyenas are always nocturnal, but I think that's why we're not seeing any activity at the den. It's too hot. It's far too hot. So they're active all night. The cubs will play all night, and I think in the morning they're inside that lovely termite mound. That's my theory. Because I check every single morning without fail. Every afternoon without fail. And no one's ever home. Now, you're having a drink and a bath at the same time. That's practical. I hope you're not doing the toilet in there. Now, in terms of IDs, I'm really not sure. Perfect ears. Young looking, clearly listening to me, but I'd need this hyena to stand up. We're at quite a distance. And the other one, we've only got a bum visual. If any of you guys can ID, please send it on in. I'm sure you've got a much bigger screen to look at than I have. And we're at the site where we had in Sele this morning, and I'm wondering if these hyenas, are here because they're following leopards, as they do all day, every day. And of course, they're absolutely loving this pan. This is called cheetah pan. If I was an animal out here, that's exactly what I would be doing. I would lie like a hippo all day. Now it is starting to get cooler. There's a lot of relief. We've managed to sort of come out of the shade ourselves and start exploring. It's so nice to see hyenas. It's been so long for me. This one's sleepy. Wants to put his head down but can't. You put your head down, you're going to get a face full of water. We could try and drive round a little bit to get a look at the other one, but I really don't want to disturb them. They look so comfortable and relaxed. Every organism's territory has to contain water. Even if you're not territorial, you need water. So yes, hyenas' territories will encompass water, absolutely. And of course, in winter, normally Galagopan is a sort of center point. It's the core area for a lot of predators' territories. If they are territorial, of course, wild dogs are not. They have core areas, primary area, secondary area, tertiary areas. A territory is not just simply an area. They utilize it differently depending on resources. So spas, absolutely, it must contain water. But in summer, water is so plentiful. Really, they can go anywhere, and there'll be a pan just like this one, or even a small puddle that has water for them. Oh, we're getting a look. Who are you? Let me see your ears. It's definitely not ribbon. I don't know. Oh, someone else is coming to join the party. It's a busy watering hole. You better be careful, tortoise. There's 2 hyenas there. It looks like he's also having a drink. Remember, I mentioned earlier, this is a leopard tortoise. They're not aquatic. They're not built for water, so this one's just having a drink. Should we try and reposition? Okay, we're going to try and reposition. I mean, most of the hyenas around here are fairly habituated. I don't think by us just moving slightly we're going to disturb them in any way. Can we join this party, please? This is like a lot of my favourite animals all in one area. The tortoise, I'm afraid, has decided, or maybe he spotted the spotted hyenas. And he thought, actually moving really quickly for a tortoise. Oh, somebody's up. Well, I can tell you who that is immediately. Oh no, don't. Please don't. Swazi. Swazi, please don't. Oh dear. Oh dear. I don't know what to say then, Swazi, everyone. He's obviously got dinner. Okay, I'm going to reposition it. It may take a while. We're going to have to go right round to the other side of the pan. Okay, well, we are going to go around and watch Swazi eat.
Sounds like you are all watching the most amazing scene unfold. I'm actually pretty jealous right now. I've never seen hyenas swim, nor have I seen them go after a leopard tortoise. Shame you see these two buffalo bulls are now paying us a bit of attention. They've been having a small little play fight, the two of them, and I'm hoping that they'll go back to it. But I seem to have distracted them as I started talking. Suddenly stopped and had a look at us. The reason I said that they are bulls, I'm sure you can see that very thick sort of casque that's stuck right in the middle of their horns. If you look to the two on the right, you can see that there's not such thick horns that go over the top of the head. So the females have much smaller horns, and they don't have that massive bulge on the top of their heads. And those two young males, what they would be doing while they would be play fighting is they need to establish a little bit of a hierarchy amongst the males within a herd. In fact, there's a hierarchy amongst both females and males. And the males, obviously, the higher ranking they are, the higher the preference they get when mating with females, and they'll also be able to mate with the females that are higher ranking. And the benefit of that is that the females that are higher ranking are generally in the front of the herd as they're walking, which means they get better grazing, ones that aren't trampled on, and also they're at lower risk of predation because lions will often stalk along the back of the herd. Stand by, Brendan. So you can see they're busy all chewing the cud at the moment. But Blaine's asking if buffalo jaws only rotate one way, and that's a incredibly good question. I'm actually not entirely sure. I've never really thought about it. But let's watch for ourselves. If we have a look, I can see that both those ones that are chewing right now, let's have a look and see if they go a different way. It does seem to be going down at quite a prominent angle, down to the left and then back up to the right. And the one on the right is doing that exact same sort of motion. No, it's just swapped. Okay, all right, we've just answered your question, Blaine. There we go. You can see the one on the right is rotating both left and right. That was an incredibly interesting question, and I'm really glad you asked it. Amazing kind of observations in the way that you look at animals quite differently and based on the questions that people ask. It's wonderful to get others' perspectives and start looking at them and thinking about these things that you've never actually wondered about before. You can see that this whole herd, if we look at all of their backs, there's a lot of dried up mud. And what's happened is there's some puddles behind us. There's large puddles of water that have gathered over the heavy rains we had about a week ago. And they've clearly been mud wallowing, even though it's not the hottest day. I think earlier they were probably enjoying that mud. They do love to mud wallow, and of course it also acts really nicely as an exfoliant for their skin. And I think what we're going to do, they're going to carry on feeding, and we are going to go and see if we can find the pride of lion that we were with earlier and see if they've moved yet.
Well, they have moved a little bit. The lions, looks like they're getting ready to get out there. They stretched their feet. They roared a little bit, and now looks like they're back to resting. That is what they do best. By the looks, all the females that I know are here, and it is nice to see all of them together. That looks like it is Bahati's mother. I can see that her nipples are being suckled, and we might be lucky that Bahati is still alive. She's definitely the one, but I haven't seen Bahati. I don't know if he's hidden somewhere, but we still have to find out about him. Yeah, it is nice and beautiful. I'll just give you a few seconds to listen to the sounds that are around. Well, there's no many sounds that I can hear. Birds have gone to rest. It is that time that they go to rest. So nice to see them out, resting like this, ready maybe to go for a hunt. Was here a few days ago. This is where they had a conflict, and he left. I haven't seen him, and he left with 2 females. I hope they will be joining the pride, because it seemed they did have an agreement that he became part of this pride. But as I said, definitely when they meet again, he will be given another beating to be welcomed. And I don't know why he left. He would have stayed. He should have stayed. It would have been easier. It would have made things easier. But I think he chose to go with the lionesses, because if they found something, then he would have, gotten a meal. Yeah, they're all coming this way, which is nice. You can see that they're not that hungry, but they will be needing a meal. Yeah, saying hello to everybody. This is normal for them just before they go out hunting. It's a beautiful light, as you can see. Very well fed, very healthy. Remember to talk to us, #WildEarth. Questions and comments are very, very welcome. It's a beautiful time of day when all these lions and lionesses get ready to go out looking for something. Alex, how many cubs can lionesses have at one time? 4. They can have 4 cubs at a time, but I've come to realize that fully grown or experienced lionesses give 4. New mothers give birth to around 2, experienced one around 4. Alex? Yeah, looks like they're not resting anymore. Anytime they might start going to look for something, which is going to be great before the rain hits us. Definitely, you can get they're getting restless. Yeah, this facing us coming this way, that is Bahati's mother. DG, Jumbo, how individual lions named? It depends with character, depends with whoever decides to give them a name. Like Olalashe. Olalashe means friend in Maasai. So whoever named him, maybe he was very friendly to the other lionesses and lions in his original pride. And so he was named like that. Kijana, it's a name for a young man in Swahili, and that's what we've named the young male. But soon he's going to be old, but it has stuck, so he'll be called that, Kijana. These girls here haven't been named just because they have so many similarities. Sometimes it's hard to differentiate, but we are starting to pick up names, so we'll be naming them depending on their characters. Some of them are called according to maybe they have a notch in their ear, they have lost an eye, they have a kink tail, so that's how they're named. That's how we name them. Look like they've decided to sleep a little bit more. You can hear the birds at a distance. Cocky francolins. Well, I know these are beautiful sight, but there's many other things we need to show you, so let's take you to another live location.
So this leopard hasn't really moved anywhere, but look at the colors on him now, especially with the sun setting. And it's quite amazing that especially with leopards, the way and how comfortable they can make any branch look, like the way they would lie down in the branch. Early on, he actually positioned both his left and right feet on each side, and then the left side, and he folded himself over that branch, and it looks so comfortable. But he's still panting quite a bit. And I wonder when last he had a meal. Maybe it was a day or 2 ago. I haven't really seen him standing up, so I don't know how full his belly might be. And I don't know, maybe he's panting because he has a full belly and lying down on it. But combining that with the heat, especially from today, because today was nearly close to 40 degrees Celsius. So it was a really warm day. But I love the color of those eyes. This blue-green tinge. And then, as you follow the eye, just notice that white patch that leans towards the whiskers. See, he spotted something. I wonder what it might be. Maybe it could be a little duiker, maybe an impala. So, it's quite I won't say a very common thing, but you do find quite a bit of them. Sometimes they do have more of a yellow eyes. Now this young male, his dad also has quite blue eyes, but his dad is the one that is missing half his ear. And I mean, if you just look at him, I don't know if the color of his eyes might change later on, more of a bit of more green or maybe more blue, or if it's going to stay like this. But he's only now close to 3 years old. And I mean, for him to be in the prime will probably be around 6.5, maybe 7 years. So imagine still the amount that he needs to grow. And he's already looking like a big leopard. Look at the size of that right paw that's hanging down from the tree. I mean, that's a decent size. See how it starts off as spots, and as you go up, it starts becoming a rosette. So a rosette is basically just a bunch of spots that looks like they're fused together with that brown patch in the middle.
Welcome back to Untitled Private Game Reserve. As you can see, we've been very lucky and we found a black rhino just after we left that herd of buffalo. It's been giving us quite a show here. Just as we came live, we saw it actually dropping its dung and doing its territorial scent mark. You can see it's just disappeared into that brush, and that's why it's sometimes very difficult to find black rhino. You know, they are very highly endangered. There's about 5,500 left in the world. But also they love this sort of terrain, you know, these low-lying bushes. Oh, yes, come on, come a bit closer. They love these low-lying bushes, so sometimes they can just be, 30 or 40 meters off the road. You won't be able to see them. I'm so lucky to be getting such a good view of this one. And also, he's quite a relaxed black rhino. Generally speaking, they are a bit more nervous of vehicles. So they do tend to turn tail and run when they see you. And this one's been really lovely and relaxed. It is an individual sort of thing. As they become more used to vehicles and as they see us as a non-threatening species that's just sort of sitting there watching them, they know that we're nothing to fear. So it does take a bit of time, and some just are less nervous than others. Such a privilege to see this. I'm going to try and drive a little bit more forward and see if we can get a bit of a better view through the gap. I see it's a little bit of a slope. So we are going to just drive up there, and I think maybe being eye level we might get a better view. Sorry for my slouch position. I was trying to duck down as I was walking in front of the vehicle a little bit earlier, so you could all have the best view possible. You can see he's just off to the left there. He's slowly walking away from us. We might just get a great view through here. Now, the trick is with black rhino, there's a few ways to tell them apart from our white rhino. Oh, you know what? We've got a road right here. Sorry, I'm going to carry on. Didn't even realize that we had a junction. Just gonna go into this road. You can actually see his dung midden right here. Look at this. Completely and utterly relaxed with us right next to him. So the way we can tell that it's a black rhino is the first way that we spotted him was his back. Now if you have a look, there's a very prominent hump by the top of his shoulders, and then it sort of goes concave down and then rises again by his backside. So he's got a very prominent dip in the middle of the back. Now the difference with white rhinos, they actually have three humps. They have one in the top of the shoulders, they have one in the middle of the back, and they have one on their back legs. It makes sort of a W shape. So that was the most prominent feature. Then, of course, as he lifted his head, we could see how high he was lifting it, and the fact that he's got a pointed lip. Stuck in bed, we do try and limit the sort of associations that rhino have. Oh, listen to that. Actually pushing down that bush to feed on it. Amazing. So we try and limit the negative sort of interactions that we have with rhinos, or the way they view humans after that. And it's simple things like we have to use a helicopter, where we dart them from the helicopter. There's a few reasons why. One is that we need to actually chase them into an open area for their safety and also for ease of getting to them while we work on them. So we'll try and, because you can imagine if they fall in one of these bushes, it just takes one sharp stump and it could actually do a serious amount of damage to a rhino. So we have to chase them into the open areas, but also we dart them from the helicopter so that they never have a negative association with the vehicles. The vehicles are only involved in the whole process once the rhino has already been sort of darted and is already losing a little bit of his senses, it's really getting very sleepy. That's when the vehicles will rush in. So they don't react differently to us. I'm sure if we were to dart them from vehicles, they would learn to fear vehicles, and that's exactly what we want to avoid. But stuck in bed, that was a really interesting and well thought out question. So what this rhino is doing, very different to white rhino. Black rhino will feed on twigs and branches, just like we saw now. It actually pushed over these dead trees. You think there's not a lot of nutrients in them, but actually black rhino love to feed on these burnt bushes because it solidifies the nutrients in the bark and makes it quite like a sweet sort of taste. And that's why he's busy walking through and feeding on them. Looks like we're going to lose our view, so I think we're going to leave him to carry on walking through this thicket and carry on feeding. And we are going to head towards where those pride of lions were earlier today and see if they've gotten up and maybe become a bit more active.
Wow, these boys have come a long way. Almost the whole rump gone there. But you can see they haven't really popped the stomach content as yet. Look at how bloated this kudu has gone in the last minutes that we've seen it. Just bulging up there. But you can now see they actually feeding on the hip bone, around the hip bone there. That's where around they're feeding. And look at how that male looks, full like a piñata. They've scoffed themselves up, and they really have to. Everything is against them, time, the sun, and so on. So they've done a pretty good job. Even if anything comes their way now, they've got a very full tummy. There's plenty meat still left there. Wow. The nasal drip on the kudu there, just showing that the stomach content is pushing everything back through the nasal cavity and the throat. Nothing has been punctured there. It's all the pressure. Dear watcher, can the 2 male cheetahs eat this whole carcass? It's probably a little bit bigger than what they would actually be able to take down or finish. So if there wasn't competition, it would last them a couple of days. They would sit on it, feed, rest a little bit, and then come back, feed. But obviously with competition, that is not the case. they might, if they're lucky, have it until tomorrow. But once things like your jackals and your hyenas start being active as the sun goes down, they might catch a whiff of what is happening around here. And also bearing in mind the place that they've taken it down is around a watering hole. So all other competitors do come to water. So time and place is not really on their side with what they've done. But if else was in their favor, then probably it would last them a few days. But I don't think this would be the case here. I mean, you're looking at probably in one go, probably a cheetah would eat anything up to about 5 kilograms if I took a rough estimate. So you're looking at about 10, maybe 12 kilograms of meat that they would consume, which is really nothing for that carcass. I mean, that is a full-grown kudu, a female, that is, without the horns there. I mean, just look at the one rump that they've eaten and look at how full the two of them are. So that just gives you a rough estimate of how much more meat there's still left and how much more it would take them to try and eat. So yeah, let's still stick around and see. The sun is just about to start heading towards the horizon there, so it's gonna unveil other species. So let's see.
We've been having quite a nice wildebeest sighting here. They've been digging in the soil and kicking up great clouds of golden speckled dust because the sun is at the perfect angle. But now, naturally, as you've come to see them, they are behind the thickest bush that they could find. And now they are doing the dust-kicking thing again. Allow me to sneak forward briefly, and we might be very lucky to get a view. There we go. Do it again. Come on, chaps. 3 wildebeest in the large clearings of Simbambali. Now, we've come to Simbambili today because there were some wild dogs here this morning. There were rumours of Hyena the leopard. Well, not rumours, fact. Hyena the leopard on Elephant Plains and way to the south of where we are now, but there was no harm in coming along to try and just have a look and see if he hadn't popped across. There we go. Now there's the digging. So that digging is a little territorial display. It's a bull that is marking the sand with his pedal glands. That's P-E-D-A-L, pedal glands. He's got glands between the cloves of his hoofs. And he's also decided to have a lie down and roll. And I'm assuming what that was, but maybe it's a cow doing it. I keep saying he, but I haven't actually had a particularly hard look to see what sex of wildebeest we are looking at. I still can't see. No, bull on the right, definitely. Might be a bull and his ladies, or it could be a little bachelor group. That was my initial thought. Yes, bull now with his backside to us. So I think it is a little bachelor group. And they're just enjoying the fact that this cold front that's coming in is cooling the atmosphere. And, as I said, the wind is tossing up great clouds of golden dust as the setting sun catches it. Very pretty. Yeah, it's become quite a blustery afternoon. But I must say, it's really nice to have the edge off that heat, which was pretty severe. And I suspect that they will lurk out here for the remainder of the day and night, unless the wild dogs decide to make an emergence here. Oh, I'm afraid I didn't get that. There was a comment from Megan, and the comment that I heard was as follows. And I really don't think that that's what you said, Megan. I doubt you said. Let's see if we can have it again. Ah, right. Very good, Megan. Why the long faces? Well, you may well ask, Megan, why on earth would they have such long faces? I suppose it's got something to do with the fact that they are, well, much maligned in the wilderness, and so it gives them a hangdog expression. What is the old legend that the wildebeest was put together after the Creator gave all the good bits to other creatures? Was that the warthog? No, I think it's the wildebeest. And the body of a hyena, the tail of a horse, and the head of a... I don't know what its head is. Horns of a buffalo, something like that. I must confess that if you watch them, especially in a big herd of them in the Masai Mara, that, you know, it's quite difficult to shake the notion that they are gormless, because they do an enormous amount of silly things. The leaping into the river for no apparent reason, the trying to get out of the river at places where it's utterly impossible to do so, the jumping into the jaws of a crocodile, a very strange kind of behaviour, and really they look at you with this blank expression and make that and carry on. But I suppose they're as clever as they need to be because they're a massively successful species. There, anyway. I am now going to continue into the setting sun and see what I can find in the west.
So the sun is slowly starting to set now, but you can see he's made himself comfortable. He's positioned the one back leg over the branch, his tail is on the other side, and he's just leaning with his chin on the side of that branch. Luckily, he's not in that tree just off to the right of where he is, so that's a knob thorn. The one that he's lying down is a marula tree, so it's a lot softer. The one on the right has these small thorns. It basically forms like a bulge or knob on the tree, and then there's a small thorn on it. Now, often the bigger trees start to lose that, but still towards the smaller branches you'll find a lot of it. I think that's why he decided on this marula tree here, because of how horizontal that branch is. It's just a nice spot to lie down, nice vantage point, and a nice breeze there. Just look at also one thing that really stands out with this young male is look at the size of his whiskers. Imagine if he had to hunt, how he would use that as a ruler to make sure that he doesn't make too much noise, especially if he's trying to sneak up into closer to animals. Because like tigers, leopards are also solitary animals and they hunt mainly by themselves. And because of that, they rely heavily on camouflage and stealth in order to take down their prey. Rochi, so leopard don't really form big groups like lions, for example. What they do is they form what is known as, we refer to them as a leap. So in other words, it might be the mother and the youngsters that will join together and then form that leap. But you don't really find that different males or different individuals from a variety or like just from the same area that will join up together and form like a bond. So it's very unheard of. I mean, it might have been recorded somewhere where either two brothers will stick together for a little bit, but once they start getting sexually mature, then that's when they start moving away from one another and go and establish their own territory, because the territory is mainly for mating purposes within an area. Donnie jy weet, there's no signs of Timbuti Tom at the moment. And we don't know, we haven't seen his tracks for quite a while, so we don't know if possibly something would have happened to him. Don't know if he might have been fighting with another male and got injured, or possibly even stumbled across the lion pride, because we haven't seen any signs of him, and which is strange, I mean, because, but also he won't be in this particular area here, so this Tswatsumoto is more like bordering his father's territory. So his father's the one with half the ear, or a lot of the rangers refer to him as the half-eared male, and this is his territory here, moving across. So it's also maybe with Timbuti Tom possibly moving on or being pushed out by another leopard. There's a good chance that this one is still here and still in his father's territory until he becomes probably close to another year, maybe a year and a half, when he'll start being pushed out of this area, unless, of course, he takes over an area nearby. But still, his father would be the dominant male within this area. Now, with leopards, any particular tree they prefer that has a horizontal branch, so just a nice spot for them to be able to lie down. And of course, it has to be a nice smooth surface, because imagine now if this tree had a lot of thorns or a lot of spikes under it, like it would be really uncomfortable for that leopard, so it might not even go into it. However, sometimes they do drag their kills up into really dense, thick, thorny bush in order to try and keep it away possibly from some of the other predators, which you do find, but they won't necessarily lie down on the branch like this. They might drag it up, feed off of it, go down, find a nice spot where they can still watch it, and then whenever they're hungry, they'll move up, go and feed, and then move out again. See how he's positioning himself now, just to make himself more comfy. You can just hear the wind in the background, how some of the branches and the nearby trees are moving. And it is cooling down. Remember earlier when we found him, how much he was panting. Look at how he's still probably warm, but he's cooled down quite a bit. He's no longer keeping his mouth open, rolling his tongue forward. Definitely going to spend just the next little while with him and see if he's going to stay here or if he's deciding to move off.
We're just sitting. Whoa. You see that? You see that? I think it's two Tonys being dive bombed by Drongos, I can't really see from here. Wow, it's so nice to see two Tonys together. They've definitely got feathers going all the way down the legs. Those Drongos have been very brave. I don't think I would be that brave. Now, I've got a few updates for you. Swazi dropped the tortoise and let it be, and it walked away. So he did not eat the tortoise. He was clearly fascinated by it, but I think it was a little bit too much effort. So he really did drop it. We went to check on it, and it was fine. Traumatized, but fine. And we've got the poll results in, everyone. I do want to apologize. It wasn't Elada, it's Lara, one of the smaller moons of Jupiter. But the one that I like the most. One. So the name of the little chick that we have in Juma is Olivia. Isn't it just lovely? A nice feminine name since the last one was slightly more masculine. And we can also call it Liv, Olive, Ollie, Olwig, Livwig. We can really go to town with it. So thank you everyone that voted. Quite a lot of you did. That's very impressive. And Hootwig was very closely second. Hootwig. Yes, that's rather entertaining. But it's Olivia, so I will pass that on to everybody in the team. And the chick finally has a name. Drongos are so brave. Really, size does not matter. There's absolutely no sort of fear of those bigger birds. African harrier hawks, Tonys, battaliers, snake eagles. They will dive bomb all of them. It's a mobbing technique. All the Drongos come together and mob the predator, and they don't like it. Most of the time, clearly not in this instance. The larger bird, the raptor, the predator, leaves. And the Drongos get what they want. But it's normally more than one that does it. It's a sort of cooperative technique to chase the predators away. Just going to pick up my binos. I'm sure they're Tonys. We are losing light now. Yes, definitely Tony, Eagle and Drongos. One's decided he's had enough, but one remains. So we're going to bumble off for the last little while, see what we can find, and thank you to all who voted.
Beautiful skyline there as the sun heads for the horizon. The boys are still very active on the kakas there. But yeah, it's going to be a beautiful sunset. Look at that. I've gone a long way. Both of them now feeding. That's the softer part that they both trying to get into. Just getting to the stomach content there. Carol, will the stomach explode if it's not punctured? Chances are, if there wasn't any animal feeding on it, yes, there could be, but chances always something happens before it gets to that point that the animal is so hard that it actually has to rupture somewhere. Usually the hindquarters, where the softest parts of the animal would be is where it would rupture. So it's not like an explosion, but it would rupture. The animal's body would rupture because of that pressure. Or sometimes what happens is all the liquids and the fluids start dripping, like we saw earlier with the nasal starting to drip with the chime and everything, and that releases the pressure, and then the carcass doesn't really rupture. But yes, in most cases the pressure would build up so much that the point of weakness would be where it starts rupturing, which is usually the hind quarters. And obviously that would then give off the smell, and things like your hyenas and so on will pick up on that, or even because of vultures looking for food, they can actually pick those rays of smell through their vision, because remember, it would actually come through in ultraviolet, and remember, birds can actually see in ultraviolet, so they'll be able to pick up the rise of that heat and the smell from that decaying carcass, if nothing had taken that carcass. So that's mostly likely how these carcasses get opened in the wild. Very beautiful there. Sassy Cassie, when will the vultures come to feed on the carcass? Now, it's not every carcass that vultures would come to feed on. Remember, vultures cover big distances in search of food, and if they don't get a whiff of the carcass, or they don't visually see it, then they won't come to it. So sometimes, especially with small carcasses, anything that doesn't last long, a day or two, then chances are they're not even going to see it unless they were in the vicinity, and as the carcass is there, they see it immediately. So in a case like this, if this carcass lasts overnight, and maybe the hyenas and the jackals don't rip it apart and finish it, then maybe you might have vultures coming through tomorrow. I mean, from where we saw the zebra carcass is about a 10K radius. So there is still a chance that with this particular carcass, they could see it, but I mean, they are feeding, or they were feeding on that zebra carcass, which is about 10 k's away from us. So you can't really tell if that's going to happen, but that's what usually would happen with vultures having to find a carcass. They'll have to soil the area, and covering at times 100 kilometers in probably over a day. I mean, there are records of vultures doing up to about 10,000 kilometers in a couple of months, and that's just one recorded vulture that was actually being studied. I actually speak of such, and you can imagine how, I mean, vast of an area this animal has to cover, and it's just moving from thermal to thermal. So that's very interesting. But we'll leave the vulture story there.
So have a look, this leopard came down and actually caught a leopard tortoise. You can see it's trying to open up in some way, but this tortoise has retracted itself completely so that it doesn't expose anything for this leopard to grab hold of. want us to do is let's just listen to the noises as this leopard is trying to open it up.
Copy. Sorry about that, I was talking on the radio. Don't quite know what happened to Ngala, but we are sitting here with a beautiful herd of ellies. Oh, perfect timing. Delightful. But obviously we've been talking about how animals keep cool all day long, and I'm sure many of you know that elephants cool from their ears. Those magnificent structures in the shape of Africa that are so much bigger in African elephants than they are in Asian elephants. And it's not just elephants, hares, rabbits, they can also lose heat through their ears. Thin cartilage, large surface area with a network of blood vessels running through them. This allows a small simple hair to regulate its body temperature, just the same as elephants. It's the same concept, it's the same mechanism. So if the hare or the elephant is too cold in winter, the blood vessels will constrict, and that conserves heat. Now, when it's too warm, like right now, as you all know, the blood vessels will dilate, and that releases heat. It's all to do with their surface area to volume ratio. And an African elephant's ears constitutes to 20% of the elephant's surface area. 20%. Look at that little one. That's a fifth of their surface area. That's how they're able to lose heat so efficiently. Oh, Benson, I think it was at Gowrie Dam. It'd been raining last summer when we had the heavy rains, and the embankment had turned into a bit of a mudslide. And the elephants, adults including the youngsters, were all sliding down on their bellies, creating this huge slippery slope, and they just kept running back to the top and sliding down again and running back to the top. I think that was one of the most hilarious things to watch. The youngsters are full of fun. Adults a little bit more serious, but the youngsters can make you laugh no end. They're naughty and clumsy. And going back to the ears, they actually give out 75% of an elephant's body heat. 3/4 of all the body heat is released through the ears. So when it comes to efficiency, I think the elephants win. We're just going to sit here and enjoy them a little bit longer. Oh, you're still with me. Well, you're still with the elephants, really. It's actually been a while since I've spent time with elephants. When you go to an environment like Swallow, which is beautiful and wonderful and magical in its own right, you miss elephants. You miss hearing them, you miss seeing them move through the bush. Look at those big ears, you can't miss them. They don't need to flap so furiously now. But around 12 litres for an adult, 12 litres of blood can pump through an African elephant's ear each minute. That's a lot of blood. So I'm still going to sit here, still admire those grey bottoms, and you're off somewhere else.
Still keeping it with elephants and how much blood. Look at how gold horizon has gone. Just the sun kissing the horizon there. Beautiful, beautiful colors there of the Kalahari. And still on the horizon there, look at the clouds, just making a different scene there. Our boys are still laboring themselves there, gorging themselves up. Look at that. We've come a long way. Almost the whole hindquarter is now gone. Still a lot of meat to go. Must have heard something there. Let's see what got his attention. Look at that. Just gorged himself. Shreyas, how long does it take for the carcass to completely decay? Wow, very interesting question. Now, if you look at where we are, we're in a very arid place, so there's no moisture to help a carcass decay like in other areas where there would be humidity and so on. So a lot of things actually go dry before they could decay here, whereas in other places where there's moisture, those carcasses actually rot quicker because of the humidity and so on. So here you still get a lot of skin and bone and so on still lingering around if it's not eaten, and it would actually dry out. So the heat would take all the moisture out of it, and it becomes solid. It becomes so hard that the decaying process almost stops. So it would vary from place to place how a carcass would decompose and decay. So, for example, if you took close to the coastline, if you took the Lowveld, and if you took here, and you took one animal, let's say, let's use a kudu that's in front of us, and you put it in those three different locations, the decaying time and process would be different. You'd probably find closer to the sea it would be quicker. In the Lowveld it would be slightly slower than there, and here it would be the slowest. So as to a time frame as in a couple of days or so on, I can't give you that exactly, but that's the kind of time frame it would take. So here it would take a little bit longer just because of the content being dry before it could actually decay. And also worms then come into play, where the flies come in and they start laying eggs on that carcass, and those eggs hatch and the whole decaying process starts. So the maggots and so on, where here it kind of doesn't really happen. You'd get it happening at a very minimal scale. Oh, something spooked them there. Very agile, very quick. Get those claws. Beautiful. Look at that.
We're still just sitting admiring elephants feeding. They're probably thoroughly enjoying the breeze the cool temperatures, just general nighttime. Hello. And believe it or not, the water holes, be it Buffelshoek Dam, Twin Dams, Treehouse Dam, Gowrie Dam, even the pans, Gallagher Pan, can actually lose quite a substantial volume of water from elephants coming in and out daily. And it's not just one herd, it's herd after herd after herd. Not only do they drink, they can pull up about 12 litres at once in their trunk. They'll splish and they'll splash. They'll throw water onto their backs, which is held in the wrinkles of their skin. They'll throw water on one another. They'll just generally throw water around like it's nothing. So if we were not to receive more rainfall for quite some time, the dams could reduce dramatically in volume. Just bear with me 2 seconds. We're having a bit of a comms issue here. Okay, I'll just get FC to speak to me again and see how that is. No comms, so we're going to rely on hand signals here, which is absolutely fine. Nothing we haven't done before. And elephants will keep moving in the heat. They won't stop. They will take mini rests, mini naps. But they'll keep moving. They will seek shade. They will seek water holes, but then they'll keep moving. Feeding as they go. Bulk grazers. So therefore they need a substantial amount of food. Really poor digesters, they need to just keep going, keep eating, keep feeding in order to sustain themselves. What a wonderful drive it's been. Spectacular. Very reptilian once again, but I got to see my hyenas and Swazi being Swazi, which was wonderful. Have we lost all the elephants? Okay, we'll give you a wonderful view of the skyline, because I'm sure you don't want to look at me. So everyone, has been an absolute pleasure, as it always is. Thank you so much for jumping on board, all your comments and questions. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.